Welcome, listeners, to another exciting episode of TAC Tic Talk. I'm editor of the American Chiropractor and co-host Dr. Joe Busch, along with publisher Jaclyn Touzard. Joining us today is the incredible Dr. Pete Goldman. Let's welcome Dr. Goldman to the program. His work with his own school of healing has impacted countless lives and inspired a new wave of practitioner to take their confidence and healing abilities to the next level. He's mixed together quite a few different techniques that he's learned along the way. Listen on to hear his story. Here we are on TAC Tic Talk this week with Dr. Pete Goldman. Dr. Goldman, can you tell us a little bit about your technique that you've been developing and how you came about it, your background?
Sure. Well, the technique that I teach is called zone technique. And to answer your question, I'll give you a little bit about the evolution of it and my background also. So I was born in New York City. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. And I grew up in a very naturally oriented family, meaning I never went to an MD for anything. We had 3 doctors when I was a kid. I mean, I was a healthy kid, but just for like whatever checkups or whatever. So we had a chiropractor, a homeopath, and a naturopath. So that's how I grew up. I didn't grow up with anything medical. And I liked all 3. I liked the homeopath, and I liked the naturopath, and I liked the chiropractor. And somehow I gravitated toward the chiropractor as time went on. Although I never thought I would do it, it didn't occur to me to become a chiropractor. It was did not cross my mind, but I loved it. I really loved it. And one thing that's kind of unique is, if you're an adult and you tell other adults, oh, you should do this, whatever it is, you go to a chiropractor, you should go to this chiropractor. They're really good. Or you should, whatever you tell them they should do. It's not as common for adults to listen to teenagers. It's kind of hard for a teenager to tell an adult, you should do this, But I must have referred 40 people to my chiropractor when I was a teenager, adults. I'm like, you got to go to this guy. This guy could fix anything. So as you can see from that story, I obviously was very enamored with my chiropractor because I was so enthused. The adults could feel the vibration coming off me, and and he was really a spectacular chiropractor. He was a real legend in New York City. And it was interesting because even though I was a very athletic kid, so I was always banged up, and I think that's why I would go to him, because I was always banged up from doing rough stuff. But I noticed that in his waiting room, you kind of overhear people. I noticed that people were coming to him for like their thyroid, or like their liver, or like their gallbladder, or their immune system. Like they were coming for that. It wasn't like they went for their neck or their back and they happen to have like an improvement in their sinuses or their digestion, or no, people like, their chief complaint, like they had period cramps. That was their chief complaint, and they went to him so they could not have period cramps anymore. Or they took a blood test and their thyroid was messed up, and they went to him to fix their thyroid. Mm-hmm. So even though I wasn't interacting with him, I wasn't interacting with him for those kind of things because I was a healthy kid. I couldn't help but notice that's what he did. So I thought, man, this chiropractic's pretty cool. And I know he wasn't using any. I didn't even know what the term modality was, but he wasn't using any. He just used his hands. So when people came into his office, it was just a bench and his hands, and he was fixing everything that you could imagine outside of obviously emergency medicine. If someone needs stitches or they have a burst appendix, they obviously weren't going to him. But this guy was fixing everything else, which I kind of noticed. So then I'd hear my parents' friends saying like, oh, their gallbladder is really messed up and they think they might have to have their gallbladder removed. I'd say, hey, I know it sounds really strange, but my chiropractor will fix that. I was a teenager. I guess they believed me. So they would go and, I'd be out with my friends and I'd come home, and sure enough, my parents' friend was there. Hey, Pete, I went to your chiropractor like 2 months ago. Sure enough, he fixed their gallbladder. So anyway, that was kind of my relation to chiropractic, was that not only could this guy fix anything musculoskeletal, he seemed to be able to fix anything non-musculoskeletal. But again, as a teenager, I didn't give it that much thought. because it didn't really apply to me, but I saw what he would do and I would refer a lot of people to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it didn't occur to me to be a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to college and all that jazz. And then I did some other interesting things in my life at the time. And then I remember after I graduated college, I moved back to New York City. I was working in business. I come from a family of business people. I do not come from a family of healers. There's no doctors or healers in my family. Everyone is, either an investment banker or working on Wall Street or having a huge business. Like I come from a family of a lot of successful business people.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't occur to me to be a healer of any type.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an economics major in college, like everyone around me, So then when I came back to New York City, I was working in business. I was like, oh man, I should be a chiropractor. It just started popping in my head. I was like, I should be a chiropractor because I loved it so much. I was like, I think I should do it. But I didn't right away. I was like, I don't, I was like giving myself excuses why I shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I was never good at science. I remember thinking I was never good at science in my head, which I wasn't. In high school, I was like, I was never good at science. I can't be a chiropractor. Little did I know, go to Life College and the science is like a third grade level. So I didn't know that at the time. But anyway, no offense to Life College. But anyway, so I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then I remember I went to my chiropractor, the same legendary guy that I'm telling you about. And I said, do you have any of your books from when you went to chiropractic school? I mean, he went to chiropractic school in the 1950s. And he gave me some like old textbook. And it was interesting because it had like everything in it. It had like science, but it also had like the adjusting. It was like an all-in-one chiropractic textbook that was written like in the 1930s. And I read it cover to cover. I still didn't think I would do it, but I was like, oh, this is cool. Mm-hmm. And then finally I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I went to Life College in Georgia. Later found out that, like I said, the science there was like third grade level. I breezed through it. Which is the one thing I was concerned about. But once I got there, I wasn't anymore.
You weren't worried about the business side.
We don't want to get any.
Yeah, you weren't worried about the business side. That's Life excels in that over there at that time.
Oh, yeah, Life, they're great at everything. Okay, anyway. So I got my degree there. Now, with that said, so I noticed when I got to Life, I was like, this is not what I'm familiar with. Because I remember I told you the guy I grew up around. Mm-hmm. But I found something very interesting at Life, which was this. When there would be like a DE, Dynamic Essentials, or, some event at Life, a lot of the Life graduates would come and speak at those events. So because they would come speak at those events, they were kind of in town, these successful chiropractors who had graduated Life. Mm-hmm. When they would come speak at the events, sometimes because they were there for a couple of days early, they would just kind of like let them in the classrooms. We'd be in some class. They say, oh, today, we're going to have the speaker because they're here anyway to speak at this event, but they're going to speak in your classroom. We were all happy because it was interesting. And some of them were local. They didn't come from other states, although some did, but some were local. They were like, oh, I practice 10 miles away. And I noticed they were talking about things that I was familiar with, like chiropractic is for so much more than neck and back pain. I noticed they were talking about these things and the power of adjustments. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. But here was the issue. The issue was this. I was a curious young guy. So I went up to a lot of them and said, hey, can I visit your practice? I was like, this is really cool because, you're only 10 miles away. Can I visit and kind of observe? They're like, oh, yeah, sure. They're very nice. Oh, yeah, come. They told me where they were. And I visited a lot of their practices. And I found that the speeches they were making did not match up with the practices they had because they were all talking about chiropractics for A, B, and C. And if you interviewed everyone in their waiting room, 99% of the people in their waiting room were there for neck and back pain.
Right.
So that was the first issue. Mm-hmm. Issue number two is when a random patient did say something to them about a real systemic issue, they were not confident at all. The best they would say is something like, well, if we relieve your subluxations, it can only help. Mm-hmm. But they were not looking them in the eye like, oh, you have endometriosis? Yeah, I'm going to wrap that up like I would wrap up a stiff neck. I didn't hear that. So I noticed, well, I would do that. So to me, it's not funny. I would do that. I've done that hundreds of times. So the point is, so I remember thinking like, their speeches are very eloquent, but they don't do what they say. Because I see who comes to them and I see their level of confidence with non-musculoskeletal stuff. And the other issue, I saw even in the musculoskeletal, even when someone had a low back condition or a neck condition, they weren't really wrapping it up. They were more managing it.
Right.
They were saying like, look, you have a low back condition, but here's your x-rays, your back's all messed up. So look, I'm going to adjust you. You're going to be better off than you would have been, but I'm not really fixing anything.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my chiropractor putting these things to bed, like to the point where if someone came to him, even with a so-called severe neck or back problem, once he fixed them up in a couple months, if their back or neck hurt 1 day per year, that was 1 day too much. So I was very disillusioned. That's the proper use of that word. I was very disillusioned with what I was seeing. So I called my chiropractor. This, of course, is leading to the evolution of zone technique. So I called my chiropractor and I'm like, of course we're both from Brooklyn, so we were talking a little different, but for the interview, I'll tone it down. So I said, hey, what's going on here? I'm at school. I don't know what's going on here, And he's like, look, Pete, he's like, just get your degree, don't make any trouble. Just get your degree. I'll teach you how healing really works. You're not going to learn it there. I'm just quoting him. Sorry, Life College. He said, you ain't going to learn it there, that's for sure.
Or so anyway, any college for that matter, as I'm sure it wasn't.
You did. He said, you ain't going to learn in chiropractic school, that's for sure. So I said, okay. So I said, I'll get my degree. But I said to him, look, I'm going to be here for 4 years. I can't call you up every day and learn from you on the telephone. Is there another way? And he said, actually, there's another guy who knows what I know. And he's right near your school. He said, he's not affiliated with your school. He's just near your school. So you can call him. He's been practicing for 40 years. Like him, they're both practicing for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they both learned from the same guy who is Dr. Thurman Fleet. Got his picture right there next to D.D. Palmer.
There you go.
So he said, Dr. Thurman Fleet taught us both back in the day. And you can learn from this guy. So I went to this guy's house. I was still in prereqs. I just got there.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking the sciences, Anyway, so I went to this guy's house on a Sunday. He practiced out of his house. He was like an elderly guy. He was an older guy practicing for over 40 years. And he was kind of practicing part-time out of his house. And I went to him on a Sunday morning. I drove out there on a Sunday morning from Life College, about 45 minutes in Georgia. And he started explaining stuff to me about healing, and I was blown away. And he told me, you can come back next Sunday. And I went every Sunday for 4 years. So that's what I did. I went every Sunday for 4 years. And there's a saying, learning at the feet of the master.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. I learned at the foot of the master. And it was interesting because this is an interesting thing. And this is also leading to the zone technique evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to, even though I was in prereqs and I was learning what was called zone therapy, because Dr. Thurman Fleet invented zone therapy in 1931, and he taught it to the two mentors I'm talking about. And even though I was learning zone therapy from this gentleman in Georgia, and I remember thinking, I don't want to be tunnel visioned. I don't want to limit myself, because if I just close myself off to what's available, that's not smart. So let's see what is at Life College. I mean, they have different adjusting clubs. They have, they teach a lot of different techniques. So even though I was learning zone therapy from this guy, I didn't want to shut out the possibility of learning some really cool stuff. So they had what was called adjusting clubs. And I went to the Motion Palpation Club and the Gonstead Club and the Upper Cervical Club and the Network Club.
Sure.
And the Thompson Club I was like, I was studying SOT and AK. I was like voraciously consuming CBP. Every technique that was available to me, I was really checking out, because I remember thinking, as good as this zone therapy is, again, that's what it was called then, zone therapy. That's what I learned starting in 1993. I said, let me see what else is out there. So and of course, they all claimed they were the best. Gonstead was making fun of motion palpation, and motion palpation was saying like Onstead wasn't good. They were all at odds with each other. But I was, I wasn't saying anything. I was only a prereq student. I was just learning. So I did this for prereq quarter 1, prereq quarter 2, then DC program quarter 1, 2, and 3. So that's 5 quarters. That's a year and a quarter. So for a year and a quarter, I'm going every Sunday to this guy. And I'm also going to all these adjusting clubs and whatever. And of course, they're all claiming they're the best. SOT said it was the best, and Network said it was the best, and Upper Cervical swore they were the best, and CBP definitely thought they were the best. So I'm paying attention and whatever. But I started thinking about this word. This word is called results. Results. And what is the result? Well, if a woman has endometriosis, a good result is that she's totally healthy. Her cervix is totally healed. If someone's supposed to get their gallbladder out because they're having gallbladder attacks, a good result would be their gallbladder is totally healthy and they don't have gallbladder attacks anymore. If someone's having panic attacks, a good result would be no more panic attacks. Right. If someone's neck always hurts, a good result is their neck feels perfect 24/7, 365. So I started thinking about results. And despite all the convincing speeches about everything being the best, I saw that this guy that I was studying with, the old man, he got better results than all of them put together. So when I got to 4th quarter, after really paying my dues, I dropped everything else. I stopped everything else. I didn't go, and I just studied with him from 4th quarter on, because I put in my year and a half giving everything a chance. And I saw the results. So then I studied with him, which was called zone therapy, which was invented by Dr. Fleet in 1931. But then as time went on, I had other influences in healing, metaphysics, and other things. And I started altering a little bit of what I was taught. And I invented what's called zone technique, which is different than zone therapy. Now, again, I love Dr. Fleet. There's this picture. I love him. The zone therapy is amazing. But if someone reads Dr. Fleet's zone therapy book, the way he taught it, you'll see quite a few differences in zone technique and what I teach. So anyway, so then I had this practice for many years utilizing zone technique. And then I eventually opened Zone School to teach zone technique and the principles of healing to chiropractors all over the world. And that's what's been going on with that.
Outstanding. No, that's a great kind of synopsis of what came to be. Now, so you're now teaching this technique, is my understanding, correct? How are you going about that?
Good question. So from the mid 90s until 2017, I had a practice. I mean, I had a practice after that too, but I opened Zone School in 2017, and I'm going to tell you what happened. So from the mid 90s till 2017, I had this practice doing zone technique, and I realized something. Well, it wasn't hard to realize, it was obvious, but I thought about it, that people were flying, not driving. People were flying into me from all over the world for healing. They were coming from, I actually tabulated it once, from 30 different countries and cities around the world, 30. People were flying to me from New York, Chicago, Guam, Hawaii, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, UK, Netherlands, and many states in the US. These people had tried to heal with chiropractic, acupuncture, medicine, etc., and had not healed. And they came to heal, mostly from non-musculoskeletal things. I realized, man, this is very special if people are flying into me from all over the world. I should teach people this. That's what I thought. This is 2017. I go, I should teach people this. So I opened up Zone School in 2017. And then from 2017 to 2021, I did both. I continued to have my practice, which I had started in the mid 90s. And I also ran Zone School. So I ran Zone School from 2017 to 2021 while I still practiced. And then in 2021, Zone School got too huge. I didn't even have time to practice anymore. So I stopped officially practicing in 2021, and now I just run Zone School full time. Wow. And Zone School is an online program. It's online. So if a chiropractor wants to learn what I teach, they just go to zoneschoolofhealing.com. They can enroll right there. They get immediate and lifetime access to approximately 60 hours of me teaching. Online, they can watch 5 minutes a day or an hour a day or 2 hours a day or 45 minutes a day, whatever pace they want to learn at. But in a few months, they'll be a master healer. And the fact is, they'll be able to do things they never could do before with musculoskeletal and non-musculoskeletal things. I also teach in-person live events. They are optional and supplemental. But if someone goes to the website, someone goes to zoneschoolofhealing.com, again, zoneschoolofhealing.com, and they click on live events, they will see I do teach a monthly in-person event. But to repeat, those are optional and supplemental. The way to learn is the online program. That is the way to learn. But if someone wants to come to a live event, they're more than welcome.
Do they have to do the online program in any portion prior to the live event?
Great question. Most of our live events are open to Zone School members and non-members alike. So someone could not be in Zone School and they can just come to the live event. 90% of people who do that, meaning they're not a member of Zone School, but they come to the live event, 90% of them join Zone School that weekend because they love it. We have some live events that are advanced, which are not open to non-Zone School members. And we have some live events which are for what's called Mastermind, which is like my triple advanced group. And that's, of course, just for them. But the website, the live event tab on the website tells you, which one is which.
Wow. So now how many doctors do you currently have going through the program, or have you had so far?
I think we have over 1,000 chiropractors in the program. And as far as the live events, I have lost count. We've quite a few.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing.
Here's the thing. I just want to say one thing, which is really important. Let's just say this is one of the most important things I think I'm going to say today. Let's just say there's someone, a chiropractor, watching, and they have certain techniques they believe in, which is fine. I respect that. And or they have certain philosophies they believe in. I respect that too. So they say to themselves, well, I'm a CBP doctor, or I'm an upper cervical, whatever they do. And they believe in that. Or maybe they have a few different techniques and they kind of have taken the various techniques and they have like kind of their own way of doing things based on the different techniques they do. And or with this techniques, they also have a certain philosophy, whatever that might be. They might love reading B.J. Palmer green books. That might be like. Or maybe there's a modern day chiropractor who has a philosophy that they really appreciate and they listen to them talk and they're like, that's fine too. The bottom line is, when you take the combination of the techniques that one believes in and the combination of the philosophy they believe in, now here they are. They step in their office. There's human beings in front of them that need healing. That chiropractor right now has a certain level of ability to help those people. That's just how it is. They have a certain level of ability to help people with musculoskeletal things, and they have a certain level of ability to help people with non-musculoskeletal things. What I'm going to say, I can tell you for sure. Anyone who joins Zone School and studies it, their ability in both will raise infinitely. That's just a fact. That's not even like a conversation, contention. That's just how it is. If someone joins Zone School and learns properly, their ability to help people and get better results, it's not even close. Now, there are some people who are already very good. So they might be like, I'm already an expert. Okay, guess what? You'll be that much better. Some people are struggling. Okay, well, you won't be struggling anymore. No matter where you are, you'll be much better. Now, with that said, when it comes to your average chiropractor, your average, now obviously there's many exceptions to this, obviously. But when it comes to your average chiropractor, how confident are they with helping musculoskeletal and non-musculoskeletal? I'll tell you, they're semi-confident with musculoskeletal. They probably think they can help people with neck and back pain. But guess what? They'll be able to do it a lot better. And they're not confident with non-musculoskeletal. They're just not. But they will be, because here's the thing. If someone comes to a chiropractor and their neck hurts, like that's just why they come, their neck hurts, and they get worked on by the chiropractor, and 2 months later they say, hey, doc, I want to thank you because not only is their neck all better, but they didn't even mention that their digestion was bothering them. And through these adjustments, their digestion has got better. I mean, that happens, of course, sometimes. If you practice for 10, 20, 30 years, of course, you're going to get those now and then. Or maybe someone will come in and just tell the chiropractor they have a digestive problem. And the chiropractor might say, well, listen, I'm balancing your nervous system and aligning your spine, and there are nerves that go to your digestive organs. It can only help, but there's not real confidence there. If someone comes with IBS, they're not going to be like, oh, IBS? No, IBS, it's like a stiff neck. But guess what? I do that. I can teach you to do that. So that's the difference. If someone comes in and they're like IBS, I'm like, oh, IBS, I'll fix that like I'll fix a stiff neck. I mean, if someone wants that confidence and that ability, zone school's for you. If someone doesn't care, then zone school is probably not for you.
Dr. Pete, so how would you describe this to someone who's like, I don't know if it's for me? It sounds like, so is this more like, is this an AK variety, or is it more CBP, drawing lines on, or what is it? It's not just upper cervical.
Nothing to do with either. It couldn't be farther away from both of those.
Mm-hmm.
So let's forget those.
Yeah.
I have a two-part answer for that. Part one of the answer is if someone's like, is this for me? Well, I don't know. Are better results for you? Then if it is, then it is for you. With that said, what is in these 60 hours of material, part of which is live, by the way, they get live access to ask me questions. What is in this material? Part of it, I'll call it 15% of it, is the zone technique itself, like the actual zone technique, which is a technique of chiropractic, whatever. But 85% of what I teach in those 60 hours are the deeper principles of healing, once understood and applied, let you get results that people would call miracles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, everyone wants to do that. Sorry, Jaclyn, please.
Oh, I wanted to say, is there a range of conditions? You know what I mean? It popped into my mind thinking about migraines, because I know that's a big one, scoliosis, any of those kinds of things that chiropractors might see that may not always be able to resolve.
Here's the answer. I mean, I'm just telling you this quite sincerely. If someone came to me with migraines, I'm going to fix 1,000 out of 1,000 of them. I mean, it couldn't be any easier.
Because I was going to say, Dr. Pete, that's the thing is like, even on these interviews, one of the number one things is chiropractors sometimes, I think, aren't even allowed to say that they can.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Every chiropractor in the world lives in a certain location with certain laws, right? Like every chiropractor on these 7 continents lives in a certain continent, a certain country, a certain state, if it's the U.S. or a province or whatever, if it's Canada, and a certain city. And they are under the auspices, so to speak, of a chiropractic whatever. Now, there's different rules, but let's just say someone came to me, not me, let's say someone came to some chiropractor in some state in the U.S., we'll just say, and they said they have Tennessee, and they have debilitating migraine headaches 7 days a week. They've tried chiropractic, they've tried acupuncture, they've tried herbs, they've tried medicine. Nothing seems to work. Their head still hurts 7 days a week. I would say to them, look, I'd say your body got unbalanced somehow. I don't know how it got unbalanced, but somehow your body got unbalanced. And the unbalance in your body is manifesting as headaches. I'm going to find out where your body's not balanced and then balance it. And when I balance your body, I expect your head to feel perfect, 24/7, 365. That language should be fine pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not in Canada, but and they'd have to work around. I have plenty of Canadian chiropractors in my school, and they just make sure that their words are appropriate.
Well, you're just not saying you're treating the condition. You're balancing the body, right? So it's like homeostasis. It's kind of even that old language that goes back to, DD.
I would say this. I would agree with you, Doc. I would just say one thing about that. The one thing I want to just add to it. In other words, yes, I agree with you totally. I just want to add one thing. The thing I want to add is, let's say there's a chiropractor who doesn't know what I teach. Let's just say it's a chiropractor, just some chiropractor in the world. And a patient comes in and they say to the patient, well, I'm going to find out where your spine is not aligned, and then I'm going to align your spine. These are called subluxations. So these subluxations are misalignments causing nerve pressure. I'm going to actually put your spine in place so we relieve your subluxations, and that balancing of your body can then help your condition heal. Let's just say they talk like that, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
turning the light on, basically.
Yeah, which I'll get to in a moment. But this is different in the sense that I'm saying to them, I'm just going to get into the zones a little bit now. I don't want to get into them too much.
That's
But
fair.
I'm going to say to them, your body has 6 zones or 6 systems: the glandular system, the eliminative system, the nerve system, digestive, muscular, and circulatory system. Every cell in your body is somewhere in those 6 systems. So any problem you possibly could be having is due to a disturbance in one or more of those 6 systems. I'm going to find out which of those 6 systems is not balanced, and I'm going to balance them, and then I expect you to heal fully. That's a much more logical speech than a chiropractor saying to someone, I'm going to find your subluxations, relieve them, balance you, and then hopefully you'll heal. And by the way, I mean, just to go a little farther, here's part of that. See, for me, if I'm thinking to myself, every cell in the body is somewhere in those 6 systems that I just mentioned, it's not hard for me to surmise, or them to surmise, no matter what condition they have, whether it's musculoskeletal and or non-musculoskeletal, it is due to a disturbance in one or more of those 6 systems, because every cell in the body's in there. But this is why a chiropractor who does like leg checks, and I have nothing against leg checks at all. I'm just using leg checks to make this point. I have no problem. I mean, I don't do leg checks ever. But if there is a chiropractor who does leg checks, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I just want to use this as an example. If a patient comes into a chiropractor with epilepsy, they have seizures. And the chiropractor does, let's say, Thompson. So they look at their legs. They say, okay, your right leg is short. Turn your head to the right. Turn your head to the left. Okay, now I see your leg is evening. So I understand the cervical component of your short leg. Then I'm going to put your legs up in flexion. Now I see the pelvic component of your short leg. I'm going to adjust your neck. I'm going to adjust your pelvis, maybe some thoracics. And now I'm checking your legs and they're even. And then they might say something like, oh, the power is turned on or whatever. They don't expect their seizures to go away. What's the point? It's like, oh, the power's turned on? Who cares? You even their legs? Who cares? You actually think their seizures are going to go away? No, you don't. And you're not going to tell them that, nor do you expect that. But this, if you balance every cell in the body, do you expect their seizures to go away? Yeah. So that's one of the many differences.
Well, fantastic. And very interesting. You're piquing my interest here, Dr. Goldman. I mean, I might have to take the 50-hour class.
Listen, you're gonna be our first DC in Panama City.
I just want a reason to go to Tennessee to see you live. But, you know, you mentioned that you do a lot of...
I teach all over the world.
Yeah, all right. So you mentioned that you actually treat a lot of UFC athletes and NFL athletes. Now, I mean, how does this apply to that? You know, when we go from seizures or migraines, you know, to the NFL athlete, I mean, that's some heavy duty stuff. Are we, you know, we're not doing like...
I have a multi-part answer for you. The first part of the answer is knowing what this lets you know, lets you get the best results in the non-musculoskeletal and also the best results in the musculoskeletal. That's why pro athletes love it. That's number one. Number two, I never set out to be a sports chiropractor. It never even occurred to me. I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life, and I've played different sports at a very high level. With that said, it never even occurred to me to be a sports chiropractor or cater to athletes. It was not even on my radar. But this stuff is so good, and these guys want results. They want this kind of thing. So yes, throughout my career, I've taken care of some of the most famous fighters on the planet. I've taken care of a lot of very famous NFL players and many other NHL players. But again, it's not even my focus. Quite frankly, I don't even care. I mean, to me, a human being in front of me, I don't care if they're the janitor in my building or a billionaire, you know, tech firm owner, which I've taken care of too, or a famous pro athlete, and I have taken care of the janitor. So I don't care. Like, a human being in front of me is someone that I am happy to help. I don't focus on sports or any of that. But with that said, yes, Nick Diaz, BJ Penn, Gilbert Melendez, Jake Shields, and it's a list of like 40 of the most famous fighters on the planet are all my patients, but it's just incidental.
Well, I think you got the right attitude, Dr. Pete. Definitely, you know, it's the person in front of you. Jaclyn, did you have something you wanted to mention there?
Well, I was going to say, I just realized we're already about 36 minutes in. So I wanted to just check and see, because we are definitely riveted. You didn't mention anything about your professional, your personal. career as well as an athlete, or is it in karate?
Well, it's a good question. First of all, I played 4 years of varsity tennis in college. I was a good tennis player, so I played 4 years varsity tennis in college. I also was a very good. It's called Kyokushin. Anyone can Google it. It's called Kyokushin. It's a Japanese form of fighting, and it is a form of full contact karate. Meaning, like if you see let's say I don't know Karate Kid, this is not what that is. Where it's almost like a game of tag. This is where you go and you try to knock each other out cold. So it's pretty rough. I mean, you can grab someone's head and knee them in the face, full blast. There's no pads. It's pretty rough kind of fighting. And I did this at a world-class level in the early 1990s. And I've done a lot of other sports and martial arts, but that was a pretty exciting time.
Wow.
That'll give you some subluxations, Dr. Pete.
Well,
if your mind is right, you come out subluxation free.
I could go on forever and ever. And I wanted to make sure too, one of the things is for any of our listeners to look for your article that's in the October issue of the American Chiropractor. It's just hitting actually today in the mail.
Page 12, page 12, October 2020.
But that's just really brief. So this, you explained a whole lot more. So we're probably going to be looking forward to hearing more from you, either in the page of the American Chiropractor, on podcasts in the future, or both. And definitely we want to make sure to keep in touch with all of the thousands of doctors who are already in your program to make sure that they're keeping up and proliferating and multiplying. Honestly, it sounds like we need more doctors who can do what you're out there disseminating. So looking forward to
join in on the educational program, zoneschoolofhealing.com. Just as it sounds, zoneschoolofhealing.com for the 50 hours. Sign up.
60 hours, zoneschoolofhealing.com. Correct.
60. Yeah, Dr. Joe keeps saying 50. It's actually 60.
I'm trying to get that extra 10 hours,
for free. Get 50
round up, round up.
Give me 70. When he joins, I'm going to give him a bonus. I'm going to give him 60 hours, 70 hours. No one else. If you're not Dr. Joe, don't even ask. Just him.
Well, thanks for that. I need all the help I can get, Dr. Pete.
Any email inquiries, support@zonetechnique.com. If you are like me, I like to email support@zonetechnique.com. But definitely, Dr. Pete, so great to meet you and to see you, and looking forward to much more.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.